Hello everyone, welcome to GV Reddy Automation Wall. Right, this is the continuation of automation framework interview questions. If you haven't watched part 1, please go and watch it. Right, now quickly we will jump into next set of questions. How to skip selected test methods from the set of test cases. Alright, there are multiple test cases. I want to skip a few of the test cases. Right, in TestNG there are different ways to skip the test cases. Right, one is enabled false. We can keep enabled false in the at the rate test enabled false, but this is not the right better approach. This is not the better approach. Right, this is one way, but if you want to disable permanently, then we will go for it. If you want to temporarily, if you want to delete, again every time code we need to update, right? One or two test case it is fine, but 10 to 20 out of 100 10 test case you want to disable it manually. We cannot go right like this, every test method enable false, again remove it, right? It is not the better approach. Right, one more is we can go with throw skip exception. Right, if you want to skip the test case, right, this is the enabled false, this is one way, and this is one more throw code. Based on the some conditions we can skip, throw new skip exception. If you throw the skip exception, it will skip the test case. It will skip the test case. Right, based on some condition, if you want to skip the test case, we can skip it. Right, one more way is depends on method. Right, some cases what will happen, this test case should execute only another test case is passed, right? Otherwise it should skip. Right, suppose you have a scenario like user create. If login success, then only I want to create the user, otherwise skip the user creation. Right, then we can use the depends on methods. Right, it depends on methods. Here one example is add to cart checkout. If right, checkout depends on add to cart. Once if you add to the cart items, then only we can check out. Right, if add to cart, first it will execute add item to cart. If it is failed, it will skip it. Right, this is one way of skipping test cases. And we can, by using the groups, right, we can also use exclude tags. Right, in the XML file we can use, if you want to execute include, if you want to do the exclude tags also we can use. Or one more way is we can use the groups. One more way is the groups, that is we can group one group, we can create a skip like this. But this is also a not a better approach, because we have to update, go and update, right? Right, group skip, then we can in the TestNG file we can groups run include skip. Right, we can use the, these are the different ways skipping the test cases. Right, skipping the test cases in the or we can use the exclude tag. That is the better approach. Maybe in the TestNG file we can do exclude tags. Right, these are the different ways in the TestNG how we can skip the test cases. Coming to Cucumber, how we will skip here? Only one way is you can tag the scenarios with the ignore tag. Right, ignore. Suppose this is the smoke test case, this is the ignore annotation. Then while running, what we can do, not ignore, other than ignore, just run it, so that it will skip the scenarios of all the ignore, it will not execute. Right, this is the one way in the Cucumber to ignore the test case. We can run from Maven also, ambient test cucumber filter.tags not ignore. Not ignore means other than ignore, run the remaining test cases. We can, there is a one more way, right? You can conditionally skip scenario using assume true false from JUnit. Right, this is the JUnit class. assume true false. That means it will skip the scenario. Right, like this we can write it based on some condition assume true. It will skip the scenario. Then one more way is just if we want to skip all the test cases, right? Dry run true means we know that it skips the execution, only checks missing test steps, right? Just it will verify only whether all the steps are future file steps are implemented in step definition or not. Dry run means it will skip all the test cases. Right? There are different ways. Right? These are the different ways we can use to skip the test cases. Then how to include exclude test methods from setup test cases in automation framework. How to include and exclude. Right? This is just now we have seen, right? In the TestNG file, we'll go quickly. In the TestNG file, what we can do? We can either include. Include means it will execute the test case. Exclude means it will not execute the test case. Right, and at the rate test enabled false. That means enabled false means it will disable, it will not execute the test case. And we can also create the groups, right? Groups, smoke, regression. Then while running, we can which group we want to run, which group we want to exclude. Exclude means it will not run. Include means it will run. Right, and the future file means just now we have seen we can create the right at the rate annotations at the rate any name we can give smoke or regression. You can give ABC or whatever you want, we can give it. And while running the runner file, just text which one we want to include at the rate smoke and not regression. Right, it will execute the smoke, it will exclude the regression. That is the one way. Right, if you want to execute only specific feature file, we can run from the command prompt mv and test fnd cucumber.features. Right, login.feature. This will be useful when you are running from the Jenkins. Right, if you want to select right from Jenkins parameter, we can select which feature file we want to run. We can select and we can use this command from the Jenkins. Alright, dry run true means it will skip all the test cases, all the feature files. Right. These are already we have discussed. Right, just quickly. How to execute pre-condition, post-conditions for each test methods in automation framework. Right, pre-conditions, post-condition. Suppose you want to execute the test case. Before I want to create the driver. After execution, I want to close the driver. Right, how to execute those pre and post conditions. Right, in TestNG, we have a before method to execute before each method. Right, after method to execute after. Suppose in before method we can create the driver, after method we can close it. Similarly, Cucumber we have a at the rate before, at the rate after hooks. We call it as a hooks. Here annotations. Right, we have a before class. Right, before class will execute before starting the first test method of the TestNG class. Right, after class will execute once all the tests in the class TestNG class is completed, it will execute after class. But in Cucumber we don't have such a thing. And before and after group. That means before and after test. Before test and after test will execute TestNG test tag. Right. If we have a TestNG test tag, each test tag before test will execute. Once all the test cases in the TestNG test tag is done, after test will execute. Similarly, Cucumber, right, before executing any tag, suppose there are multiple smoke scenarios are there. Before executing the first smoke scenario, before we will execute. Similarly, after also we can give at the rate after, right, at the rate after and then tag, so that it will execute after all the tags are smoke tags are completed. Suppose right, before suit to after suit. That means if you want to execute only one time, that means suppose I want to read Excel data only one time, then we will go for before suit. If you want to execute only one time, then we will go for before suit. If you want to execute some piece of code only, after the, suppose if you want to generate the report after all the execution of it, then we will use the after sort. Similarly, in Cucumber, we have a before all, after all hooks. Right? Before starting the first scenario, before all will execute. Once all the scenarios executed, after all, it will end. Right here in Cucumber, one more thing we have, before each step in Cucumber we have a steps, right? For each step, if you want to execute each step before, we can use the before step. For after step, we can use the after step. Right, these are the different annotations in the TestNG we can use before executing our test case or after executing our test. Right, we can use based on our requirement. Similarly, Cucumber also we have a hooks. Right, how do you prepare dependency execution? Right, how do you prepare dependency execution for tests in automation framework? Handling the dependency in TestNG framework, we can in the TestNG we have a depends on methods. One is depends on method. That means suppose let's see here one example. Add to cart item checkout. Checkout should be done once only add cart item to execute. Suppose add cart item add to cart item is failed. Suppose right checkout will not work. Checkout will not work. Suppose in that case I have to restrict it. That means add to item cart, if it is working then only checkout should work, right? I want to execute checkout only once add item to cart is worked fine, then depends on method, right? Checkout depends on add item to cart method. Before suppose first it started execution, what it will do, it will verify okay it has a dependence, so checkout first will execute add item to cart. If it is passed then only it will execute, otherwise it will skip. Right, one more is depends on groups. We can also use it depends on groups. Suppose, right, this make payment. Make payment is, right, depends, this one more is a groups, depends on group. Suppose login is smoke group belongs to, select product is belongs to smoke group. Suppose I want to execute make payment once smoke group is executed. I want to execute this make payment only once smoke group is executed. All the smoke group is executed, then only do the make payment. Right, we can also execute like this. What depends on group. Right, if one group is passed, then only execute this test case. Right, then one more is always run true, force to execution. Right, what will happen? This is when it will be useful is suppose create account. Suppose I have written test case like this. Update profile is depends on create account. Update profile is depends on create account. Right. Suppose what will happen in depends on methods, if create account is failed, update profile is always skip. But if create account is fail also, I want to do the update profile. Sometimes we will get that requirement like that. Right. If dependent method failed also, I want to run the test case. Then always true will be useful. When you keep it always true run, that means what will happen? If dependent method failed also, update profile will execute. That is the always true functionality. Right, always run equal to true. Then priority, if you want to control the order, we will use the priority. Right, priority. Right, least priority is it will execute first one, execute first two, three. Then controlling the execution using depends on methods and priority. Right, sometimes suppose see book flight and confirm booking both are depends on, one is depends on search flight, one is book flight. We can also give priority. Depends on also we can give, and then priority also we can give. Right, both also we can combine. ensures sequential execution and dependency handling. Both it will do. Similarly, in Cucumber, we don't have any built-in dependencies like TestNG. However, dependencies managed by using few things. Hooks. We can use the hooks to execute before and after, or tagged hooks. Tagged hooks means what? In scenario, we can on top of it we can give some smoke or something, right? At the rate execute this before multiple befores we can give multiple afters also we can give. Right? We can control tagged hooks means execute this before the execution of the particular scenario. This before execute for each scenario. This before it will execute only matched tags. Right? We can also use a shared state. That means if you want to send data from one step to another step, right, we can share the data. That is also one dependency, right? Test data also, right? These are the different things in the Cucumber. By using the hooks and then tagged hooks and the shared state, we can achieve somewhat dependency management. And how to set a priority, right? Priority we know. In TestNG we have a priority attribute, right? If it is a least priority, it will execute first. Right, least priority will execute first. We can, that means what is the importance of priority? We can restrict the order of execution. Right, we can restrict. Suppose I want to execute first this one. Otherwise, what is the default? Default execution order. In the interview, they will ask what is the default execution order of the test methods. Alphabetical order. Alphabetical order. Right, handling same priorities. Suppose if two test cases have same priority, suppose two test cases of priority 1, priority 2, then they will execute in alphabetical order. They will execute in alphabetical order. Alphabetical order means test A will execute first, then test B. If two test cases have same priority, they will execute in alphabetical order. Right, one more is if you want depends on methods. Combining priority and depends on method, we can combine and also execute in the order, what order we want. And in testng.xml also we can control the order. Right, in the single test we can give classes like this. Class login test search, then it will execute in the whatever order we have given, it will execute a login test, search test, checkout test. We can also execute the order like this in the test from the testng file also. Priority in the Cucumber, if you want to execute Cucumber does not have any priority attribute like testng, but we can control something like by using background keyword. Background means what? Common step. Right, suppose if I want to execute a login for each and every scenario before, right, before executing any test case, I want to execute login. Then we can use the background keyword. Scenario order. Right, we can use Cucumber execute scenarios in the order they appear in the future file. Whatever order we will write scenarios, it will execute in the same order. Future, in the future file we can have multiple scenarios. Whatever order we will write, it will execute in the same order. And then tagged hooks. By using the tagged hook also, before running the test case, if you want to run some predefined condition, then we can use tagged hooks. Suppose see, this is the background given. I open login page. For these two scenarios, first before executing the common step, that means before executing scenario, it will execute background. First step, this is the common step for these two. Common steps we will write by using background. And then whatever order we will write the scenarios, it will execute in the same order. And then tagged hooks, right? Suppose at the rate before regression, execute this before method, before hook, for every regression scenario. Right? These are the ways we can order of execution we can do. Right, fine. For this session, these are the some of the questions. We can continue remaining in the next session. Alright, thanks for watching. If you like my way of content and teaching, just subscribe to the channel, enable notification for more videos, share it to your friends and like the video. Thanks for watching.